Good morning and welcome to Marjorie's Table on this 20th of August. Today we're going to do what we do in all of the sessions. I think it's a little model that has working well or has been working well for 6 months, so I'm sticking with it. We'll do a quick warm-up and then we're going to look at poems by the same poet. Um, the first poem this morning is actually a little sequence of 3 poems, and it's very hard to pull them apart. So we'll do 2 separate prompts to that. And then we'll look at a third poem, and I'll give you a prompt to take away. But before we get into that, and before I even tell you who we're looking at this morning, let's do a warm up that we do almost every time with these sessions, which is that I will give you 2 separate words, and I want you to make a list of words, whatever comes. There's the weirder the better. There's no right or wrong way to do it. The first word is the word simmer. Simmer. I will pop that in the chat box in case my American accent is off-putting. Okay, now boil. Whatever comes for boil. Okay, if you feel up to it, pop 2 or 3 or 4, however many of them you like, into the chat box. No need to if you don't want to. But if you'd like to, please share some of your words. And if you're listening live or even watching the recording, I guess, listen out for some that you'd like to steal and stick them on your own list. Idea is to kind of stretch our brains a little bit. Stewing, stove, forgotten, splitting, burnt milk, beautiful, a low hum, taking taking time, secret fury, beautiful, froth, coddle, cauldron, seethe, I love that, wrench, under the surface, jelly pan, end of my tether, lobster in a pot, hubble bubble, fuming, fester. I mean, there's some stunning words in there this morning. Pop, furious, headland, spume. Okay, I'm going to stop there, but there are so many beautiful words there. Take a moment, steal a few, stick them in your list. And the idea here is to try and stick in a couple of words into your writing this morning. Even more of a challenge, I think, is to write with a word that you wouldn't normally use. Like I might not use the word spume. And so to try and put that in a poem about birds or something happening outside my window makes my brain do a kind of slightly extra thing. And sometimes it makes our writing go in ways that we don't see coming. So try it, but no pressure if you don't get to it or forget about it. That's okay. Um, if you are watching the recording, there should be a few of them in the email that went out, so in case you didn't hear those. Today we are looking at the work of Leo Boix. This newest book from him, a Latinx writer who lives in Britain. The Southernmost Sonnets is up for the best collection in the Forward Prize. I had it anyway. It's a book of sonnets. I will show you one of his sonnets. But we're not going to look at his sonnet today. We're looking at, or the first, at first, we're looking at this beautiful piece at the Poetry Foundation website called Table Variations, and there are three of them, as I say. So we'll look at all three, and then I won't show you a second poem to write to this morning. Let me have a read of them. Table Variations. Kitchen table. Imagine this. Mother sits near the rusty stove, chops onions for the puchero pot. Radio's on. A soft bolero by Lucia Gazia. Somos. We are. She sings along to her favorite tune. He wants to talk. Dog sleeps under the table. He doesn't know how. He met an older boy. They kissed. It just happened. In an instant. His new dirty shoes, her stained apron over her knotted hands. Kitchen's bright yellow light undoes him. Mother senses his stare. Dinner isn't ready yet. He wants to say things. That same night, a storm breaks out. Water overflows the gutters, takes everything away. Leaves, twigs, a straight, soft string. She doesn't have much time. Oval table. Profane, four-legged thing, a holy place of gatherings. Mother, father, three kids, a ghost, eating asado Sunday mass barbecue, sins, familiar sins, scattered all over the old checkered tablecloth. Pray one day you'll have a family like this. All these traditions will pass on to you. Pray this broken table now dies slowly, now lies alone in a tool shed somewhere south. High altar. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking some of the clean animals and clean birds, he sacrificed burnt offerings on it. A piece of furniture with a flat top and one or more legs, providing a level surface for eating, writing. Of us kids, this life and fathers still unknown, preaching to you. We're both so apart, alike you, to tell us, my son, I, oh why, will make you feel you love a man. Every woman, hidden, mujergo, inside liar, like dad, you love, cracked, hairy legs, broken legs, so familiar, or so he says, or so he says. This last piece, of course, you can read in many ways. You can read along down the left and along the right, which probably makes more sense than the way I wrote it. But I wanted you to have that experience of jumping the gap with me. I won't read them again. Normally we read the poems twice, but I want to make time for your writing. So a couple of quick craft notes. And this part of Marjorie's table is really for you to take away for later when you're editing your own work. Part of it is just active reading and noticing what a poet does. The biggest thing to point out is when we write sequences, each piece or each sequence really has to stand on its own. It has to be worthy of a poem all its own. And if it doesn't, it's probably not working hard enough. So you'll notice each one of these sequences or each part of this poem. I should say, sorry, I've noticed a comment. Please pop comments into the chat box. It's really nice to hear what you think about this poem too. But each part of this poem stands on its own, would work as a poem beautifully on its own. So when you're doing that, when you decide to break a poem into sequences or add poems together, make sure they hold their own, or something will be letting you down. And as a reader, we notice that. The other thing is to look at how form is working here. This kitchen table is incredibly solid. And the form of it, those little choppy kind of sound bites, little choppy phrases that are sentences are their own, give that feeling of tension, give that feeling of something being broken in a room, trying to start and finishing, which of course matches what's happening in the narrative of that poem. The other thing I can't help but show you is the endamment here, which is just a fancy word for breaking a line before the phrase is finished. He wants to talk. He doesn't know how. That's a beautiful way of showing, getting the reader to lean in, guessing what's coming next. But of course, the line endings work too in terms of giving us this chunky, almost solid thing. And then when we get to the oval table, we've got, the family and a ghost all squeezing in, and you get the feeling of being squeezed in a way, or at least I do. There aren't there aren't moments of punctuation that really help us except for the word pray, which is slightly confusing because we get a pray in the middle here. So I thought it might have been a start of a new phrase, but of course it isn't. And so it probably says a lot about the word pray here and how it might be sort of important, but doesn't actually break something that's actually already going on in this poem. So you can, and the lack of punctuation in this one allows us to read those lines in a number of different ways, which is a kind of offering, I would say, of the writer here, leaving it to you about how you read those lines, which bits you join with other bits, which changes the meaning. And again, that's terrifying for us as writers to do because we want to make sure the story we're telling and what we think gets across. The gift is to give it to the reader and let them decide. Perhaps on the day that, on a different day, they might find something else, what they find. So notice what punctuation does for you. And then, of course, the third one, how form is working so hard here. Each side can be read on its own, but if you want, you can make a jump. And what a jump, right? We're talking about something that's holy and something that doesn't feel holy, something that feels broken. And the table itself, because of the top of it, is slightly wonky. We feel it's not stable in a way. So the form is doing a lot to underline the feeling in the piece. So lots about form today. I often talk about form or lack of it. But I wanted you to see it too. Let me try and find, I can see a couple of comments. Leo Boix is a Latinx writer who has published a couple of books in Spanish in Argentina. Um, and this is, I think, the second or third of his in English. Oval, yeah, again, three different tables to tell a story. I love that too, Becca, and how each one feels different. The oval feels formal and stressed. The kitchen is a moment of kind of in a failed, I guess, intimacy, but intimacy nonetheless. I think the form, that those little bite sizes tell us about how you want to do something, so it feels intimate in a way. Imagine this. Yeah, I love that opening. Try that if you want. Imagine this and tell us about a table. I love the pray with the exclamation point, as if, we're being told to pray too, which is really moving. One isn't italicized, one isn't. So, in case you missed it the first time, it's now a kind of imperative, a directive in the second pray. Okay, I could talk about this poem for 15 minutes, but I won't. The first prompt is to write about something that happened at your kitchen table as a child, a moment between you and someone older, a moment between you and a sibling or a friend, anything that comes. You can start with that opening. Imagine this. I'll give us maybe 6 or 7 minutes to give that a go, and then I'll give you an alternative prompt for that. If you're in the flow and don't want the alternative prompt, just ignore me and keep writing. Remember, you've got a whole stack of beautiful simmer and boil words to try and weave one of the two of them into your writing if you wish. I'll pop that in the chat box and I'll bring us back together. I'll give you a warning in about a minute to go. Just another minute or so on that one. Okay, if you want to swap prompts, try writing about the first counter or table that you can remember. Who was at it? Where was it? What did the people in the room say or do? What did it feel like? Or write about your first writing desk. Um, was it an impromptu desk? Was it the kitchen table, or was it somewhere out back in a garden under a tree? The first place you wrote at, or a first kitchen table, or a table that you can remember sitting at. However that comes, tell us what was in the room, what you can remember about it. Again, maybe 5 minutes on that, and I'll show us a poem to close. The first kitchen table, or first counter, or first writing desk that you can remember. Just another 30 seconds or so on that one. Okay, I'm going to read this poem that's been translated from the Spanish, which is called Night Swimming. And I'll give you a prompt to take away with it. The link to it is in the chat box as well. And the links to both of the poems will be in the email that should appear as soon as I can get everything uploaded. Night Swimming. The candles have already consumed themselves in the dining room below, which smelt of supper, of roast lamb with rosemary and burnt garlic. The bottles of red wine have piled up in the kitchen along with the plates on scattered tables. We extinguished the lights in the house, room by room, left the music playing. Without a word, we walked Golden Street, slowly crossing Beach Street, which at this hour was deserted, and went down over the pebbles to the black beach. In the distance, lights reflected from the channel. Quivering, they warned the boats against running aground on the sandbanks. The restaurant at the end of the pier had already closed. Light was falling. Even the fishermen had gone. We took off our clothes, shirts, the Bermuda shorts we'd worn all year, sandals. The dark water was waiting, so much calmer than the channel. The close night hugged us. We windmilled our arms, took a deep breath, looked towards town, lit by orange halogen bulbs, as if for a party. We dunked ourselves, made for the submerged Goodwin Sands. We listened to our breath, put our heads under water, black with night above. We saw the Big Dipper and Orion's belt. The sea stilled to a mirror. We became the current. Night swimming, I said. The moon shone on the Dover Road. So this is a prose poem. Have a think about why it's a poem rather than just prose. But I want you to try, if you want to try writing a kind of night scene, because I think it's particularly difficult to write a night scene because there's less color, you can see less, but in this form, and think about what makes it poetic. I, for one, think that poetry involves the reader quite a lot in a way that prose doesn't always have to. But have a think for yourself about why this is poetic or a poem rather than prose. We can talk about that another time. But think about going out in the dark and doing something maybe dangerous or something unusual for you, something that felt uncomfortable, and try writing it in a prose format like this and see what comes. That's all from me today. It's 2 minutes past. Apologies for running over. I hope to see you same time, same place next week, where we'll look at another poet in the same way. Enjoy your week, everyone. 7:30 on a Wednesday morning. Bye. I see the comment about prose poems. I will do a session on that.